Afternoon, and thanks for inviting me. I'm going to kind of back up a lot of what Andrew said, so excuse me if there's some repetition. I want to talk about, first of all, what a town centre means and what it meant for me, and how important town centres were for my generation. So as a 12-year-old, this is the very ticket that I bought. I was lucky enough to see David Bowie at King George's Hall in Blackburn. What that did to a 12-year-old was phenomenal. So this was a culture that hit me as not even in my teens yet, but it hit me square in the face. It was the first concert I went to without my mum, and to see this guy up on stage changing outfits with a shock of bright red hair. At one stage in some kind of jock strap, I think that's the official title for it, that cricketers would wear, was exhilarating, was the word. I went out the next day. I went into a shop called Clobber. I bought myself some bright yellow wide flares, a little knitted top with Galen from Planet of the Apes on it, and I had my hair dyed red and feathered. The next night, in the Lancashire Evening Telegraph, the local paper, the Blackburn Evening Telegraph as it was called then, there was a call for David Bowie to be banned from ever coming to Blackburn again because he went on stage like that. And I just thought, great, if that's what it takes, I want to be banned from Blackburn. That was the start of me spending money in record shops, going to, that's a picture of me becoming a punk in 1977, of going out, starting to promote gigs myself, starting to do DJing in the town, starting to do club nights, and the rest was history and I'll come back to Blackburn in a bit. I met in the neighbouring town, Burnley. That little thing at the bottom is what I handed to my wife. We've been together for 38 years now. I saw her on a dance floor on a Northern Soul night. That's what town centres are for. Meeting your future wife, settling down, or meeting your lover. Town centres are about dancing. They're about love. They're about getting together with your mates. They're not just about bloody shopping. Shopping is a byproduct of all of those things. Shopping is something that you do, for me, when you're happy, and it's a response to something else. If it's a be-all and end-all in a town's life, then the town is not understanding people. It's asking me to shut down on the thing there, look. What happened next was as a result of my upbringing in Blackburn, was that me and Geraldine wanted to go. We went down to London because we knew that the things that were important in our life that we'd loved doing in Blackburn and Burnley were dancing, dressing up, fashion in other words, watching bands and buying records. Probably still the major things apart from our kids and our grandkids today. We still want to do all of that, and why not? That's culture. That's what life is about, and you can repeat that for millions of people. Are you going to get that off screen? Can you not see it? It says asking you whether to shut it down or not. It might be on this one here. It's not on here, is it not? Oh, that's fine then. It's only blocking my screen. That's fine. Don't worry. And so we went to London. The first, I don't know if I've got a picture of it. No, not a picture of that. The first thing that I did is I formed a band, as you should. Spent all the money that we had. We'd gone down with £50 each in our pocket. Spent all that money on the band, and we had to get some money to survive. Our rent on our flat was £10 a week. It's fine. Just leave it. It's fine. Our rent on our flat was just £10 a week, and I'd spent all that money, and we had to find it. But luckily there was a public market in Camden just getting going, the famous Camden Market. It was £6 a day to trade in there. Geraldine said that I had to empty my wardrobe of all my old punk clothes because I wasn't a punk anymore and I didn't need them all. So I agreed to do that because it was either that or off we were back to Lancashire. And I said, okay, then, and will you sell some of the clothes that you don't need? She'd left school at 15, and the main thing that she did with the money that she earned as a wages clerk, was to buy fabric to make clothes to look good. And so I said, some of the clothes that you're not wearing at the moment, will you sell them? So we emptied our wardrobes onto Camden. Over that weekend, we took 300 odd quid, which was 3 times the amount of our joint money that we'd come to London with, and we knew we had enough to pay the rent for ages. So from then on, that was it. We had a spark to start a business. To cut a story very short on this, and I can talk more about it in the workshop, and we can expand on this, is that we soon got to be taking, eventually, £10,000 on Camden Market, and we bought our first house for cash in London, a 3-bedroom house, Victorian house. Geraldine was only 19, I was only 20, and business came from culture, business came from opportunity, and I could repeat this story for so many people that you've heard of. Parallel to that, Geraldine took a stall in Kensington Market. Does anybody heard of Kensington Market? Kensington Market was this amazing place on Kensington High Street. They had equivalents of these all around the UK. I'll mention them in a minute. But they were basically, it was an old closed down bank, a historic bank on Kensington High Street that had been subdivided. If you look at that bottom right-hand picture, had been subdivided into what looks like a health and safety nightmare, but a rabbit run of small stores. You would have fitted 3 stores on this platform here, and it was full of young people, and I'm going to keep coming back to this. It was full of the Generation Zs and the millennials of that time, young people who didn't need the bloody bank of mum and dad, who just needed 10 quid. That's all you needed, was 10 quid to have a go. And the confidence that it gives you when you're from... And this is very important, and it's very relevant to today, that how many people in here are over 45? Looking at it, the vast majority, which I'm a bit slightly worried about, really, but when we're talking about the future. But anyway, the vast majority of us are over 45. How many disagree with this statement, that when we grew up, there was a feeling that as long as we rolled up our sleeves, put a bit of elbow grease on, in other words, worked hard, we would probably do better than our parents? Does anybody disagree with that? You disagree. You don't disagree. You do disagree. So does anybody? I just want to. I'm not going to ask you why, or we can, but we will in the thing. Does anybody else disagree that now you've got more chance, and young people feel that they've got more chance than we had? Not well. You're the only one. You're the only one at the moment. And what that did. So my screen's gone totally off now. It's making it difficult. What that did was give us complete empowerment about a can-do attitude. So for somebody from a background like myself, single-parent family, my dad, well, not my dad because he buggered off when he was 3, my father, left when I was 3. So I lived with my mum in a tower block. My wife, Geraldine, was from a 2-up, 2-down workers' cottage, one of 5 daughters living in 2 bedrooms, but we never had the word disadvantaged and never ever felt that we were disadvantaged. We knew that we totally had the opportunity, just like most of us in here, to do better. So we had the confidence. So I need to look at what's... we're back on here, good. So we had the confidence, or Geraldine had the confidence to open in Kensington Market, to take her sewing machine in there, to buy 8 rolls of fabric. And around her was loads of other young people with confidence in this town centre. There was Boy George with a band called Zig Zig Sputnik, before he formed Culture Club, next to her on her right-hand side. The stall behind her was famously where Freddie Mercury was spotted singing, believe it or not, because he was picked out to sing with Queen. He didn't form Queen. He started behind Geraldine on Kensington Market. I can go lots of people you will have heard of, from Vivienne Westwood, and keep going and keep going and keep going. And then you repeat that around the UK. There was Affleck's Palace in Manchester, which still exists, but not in its same form. There was Quiggins in Liverpool. There was a Corn Exchange in Leeds. We also opened in Bristol. We opened in Buchanan Street in Glasgow. There were all these places where all you needed was a tenner in your pocket. And people, there was hairdressers starting, there was tattoo artists starting, there was people selling bootleg CDs, bootleg cassettes of whichever band was in town last night. But But what happened was, and the really important thing is, and I'll say it again, is you didn't need the bank of mum and dad. You didn't need a business plan. You didn't need to have a covenant, and you didn't need a bank reference. All you needed was a tenner. And that is what makes town centres. And we're doing work all around now to bring that. The equivalent of a tenner now is 45 quid in my view. So we're bringing that to various places that we're working. And what you have to do is fill this room with young people and tell them that you're going to create spaces for them to have a go, and you're going to support them in some way. But more about, we can talk about more of that later. Just to complete this story. Geraldine in Kensington Market, after 3 weeks, I got a phone call from her saying, a really excited future wife, saying, we've just had our first wholesale order. And I said, that's fantastic, somebody wants to buy your clothes. She said, yeah, but it's massive. I said, what do you mean it's massive? She said, somebody's come in and ordered 200 of each of my items. I said, well, that's amazing, but you can only make 3 on a quiet day. I said, what are you going to do? She said, well, I had to take it because everybody else was saying that the person who's bought it, the company that's bought it, are really important. And I said, who are they? She said, well, I've never heard of them, but they're called Macy's New York. And that was the start of us creating. At that stage, we didn't have a brand, but these things happen. But they only happen if people are out there and you're giving people a chance. The internet does not replace that. It goes a long way in a different direction to create opportunity, but it doesn't replace it. And we went on to own 23 shops, a turnover of 25 million, 385 staff employed all around the country, and that only comes when you give young people a chance. And at the moment, if you look at the statistics, the equality is getting wider, and less people from my background who can be the most entrepreneurial and the bravest, it's not happening. And in 2 countries in particular, well, there are 3 countries in the world where this is happening in a very bad way. One is, the worst is America, the second is UK, and the third, and we're roughly level with Portugal. And then there's this amazing gap where young people have a better chance. And until we think about that town centres are, yes, they're about buildings, and they are about heritage, but ultimately they're about people. And that's what we have to think about, and what people do and what people need. This is something that we have pinned up on our office to remind us all the time why we do urban regeneration and town centre regeneration. It's the fact of what I've just talked about. The inequality gap is getting worse, and that is the worst thing that can happen to any country. So what else we're going to talk about? I'm going to wrap up fairly quickly. What else are we going to talk about this in the sessions the rest of today? We're going to talk about, I'm going to talk and get you to talk about as well, the idea that you can take historic places, but not wrap them in cotton wool, and allow young people to make new futures out of them. Young people like old buildings, they like the soul in them, but they also want to make them their own. And if you look at what's happened in the Mitte district of Berlin, I don't know if has anybody been to Berlin? Does anybody know the Mitte district? Well, come in and tell the rest about it today. It's unbelievable what's going on there, and it is the only place right now that is seriously threatening London as the vibrant capital of creativity and culture in Europe, and it's the only place that is losing vast numbers of young people from London are not going to Manchester at the moment in enormous numbers. They're not going to Birmingham. They're going to Bristol a bit, but they're going to Berlin, and it's a combination of culture and buildings and opportunity, and what we were able to do in Kensington and Camden back in 1980. But more about that later. I've been back in Blackburn working in my hometown for many years now. And the main thing that I do know from how do you... Blackburn lost all its mojo, or most of its mojo, a combination of racial segregation and serious racial segregation between an Asian community and a white community, which is still not totally healed, and I'm sure you know about it, and you've seen the programmes that the BBC have made about it and all of that. But that was part of the reason why Blackburn's town centre completely lost its mojo and the chances of ever getting an equivalent of David Bowie. back there are just about zero, or have been zero. It got to the point where there wasn't one single bar or coffee shop open after 5:30 in a town of 150,000 people, and not one single bed space, zero in a town, nothing at all. But we worked with Blackburn, and the key thing is a town has to have a USP and do something that's individual. Sometimes it can't be totally individual in the world, but it's got to have its own DNA in a region, and somebody be able to describe what you do. I don't think it's good enough to say that Derry is a lovely historical walled city. It's fine, but there are other ones, and there are lots of other historical places. And I don't think that I know that people are living till 85, but I do know that I'm 57, and I would say that my club culture generation, yes, they love the history, but they want so much more. We want so much more than that. We are not going to spend, you look at the statistics, we don't spend as long in museums. We don't spend as long in art galleries. There's other things that we want to do, and we still want to dance. And so what we've done in Blackburn is try to change the culture away from just thinking about shopping. And if we do shopping, how are we going to do it? So Blackburn were brave, and they started to buy up dozens and dozens of empty shops. And we decided that rather than just kind of fill them, sometimes some towns have been putting films across the front of the shop and putting murals. Other towns have been just putting art in them. We said, okay, what does Blackburn stand for? Well, Blackburn has always stood for making things. It's got the highest proportion of people manufacturing, going to work in the morning and manufacturing. So 19% of the population get up in the morning and go and work. The national average in the UK is 10.6%, and in most towns of that scale it's 7%, and the nearest town to it is Skelmersdale, which is 1% down. So we said, okay, Blackburn needs to claim the fact that it's a making town. On all of those shops that you've bought, that give them to people who make something for free, as long as they make it in the window. It will inspire a new generation. So we had chocolatiers, we had, have I got any pictures? Yeah, we had the top right there is a woman who's working in New York now, a young lady, as she was then, who used roadkill to make really unusual taxidermy, and used dead insects to make rings and stuff, and she opened a shop doing that, and now she's doing really, really well in America, and because they're strange over there, aren't they? And we had a chocolatier who's now moved on to another shop, a t-shirt maker, a bike maker, anything as long as it was things that were happening with your hands. That then led to us creating the first making rooms outside of a major city. So the Blackburn Making Rooms got funding from the Arts Council, $250,000, I think. And so now it's got a fantastic, a brilliant old building that is just full of people making things, and the latest CNC machines and everything. And that led then to the National Festival of Making. The National Festival of Making. We claimed that because we could. And now it's live on the BBC. We're in our third year. This year, official figures are 45,000 people came into the town. We know it was 60,000. Imagine that, from having no events to events that bring 60,000 people into a town centre. In the last year, 9 bars have opened in Blackburn Town Centre, all been opened by people under 32. The town is starting to walk with a swagger again. And not only that, is that the communities are coming together as well. Because there's a renewed confidence. I must come to an end very, very quickly. This afternoon, we're going to talk about why streets like that are effing awful, and we should not allow them to happen. And if you've got more than one betting shop in a square mile in Derry, what the hell are you going to do about it? We're going to talk about why some towns are banning shops like that to be within 600 metres of any educational establishment, and that's just the start of what Sadiq Khan is doing in London. Soon we will completely and utterly stop a proliferation of shite food that just blights our high street. I'm going to explain why we should celebrate when shops like Woolworths, British Home Stores and Jessop's close down. Yes, it's sad that we lose employment, but why do we need shops in the centre of our high street that sell bloody pick and mix when that should be, that should be what a small independent retailer sells? And why sell things that are not needed and proliferate when young independent businesses could be coming into those spaces and doing something that was more worthwhile and making a place rather than making an identikit town centre. We're going to talk about how this has always been. The Roman Forum was the start of town centres. It was where people got together, and we know what the Roman Forum was about. It was about debate, it was about getting together, it was about sharing grapes, and probably sharing bodily fluids in the end. But all of those things are what life is about. This is Margate. We'll talk about Margate later. Margate very much is like a southern version of Halifax. In that it was in a real state, but it sucked in, and this is important. There was some talk earlier about you have to do everything yourself internally. You don't. You have to let people. You have to let a town's young people off the leash, but you also have to let them encourage other people to come and work with them. And Margate did that amazingly. It sucked people from East London, and it created, well, Margate is transformed, and the story of Margate is phenomenal. And it wasn't just the big art, the Turner Contemporary. Everything stems from people. I'm not going to talk about that, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that. And finally, I just want to talk about Liverpool, because I know how linked you are to Liverpool. It's one of the, Derry has got an airport that, you can fly to Liverpool, so you can go and see what's happened in Liverpool. And there's real resonances with Liverpool and with Derry in many, many ways. So Liverpool won the City of Culture, European City of Culture, in 2008. I was part of the bidding team and worked with you on winning the City of Culture in 2013. Liverpool, a lady headed the City of Culture there called Claire McLaughlin, an Irish background. And she has been kept on, and there is no decision in Liverpool made about anything major in terms of urban design, in terms of economic anything to do with how Liverpool moves forward involves Claire as head of culture. Culture is embedded at the centre of everything. There is no regeneration that I know that is decent and long-lasting and impactful that doesn't have culture and youth at its heart. I want people to come and show me examples for the rest of today and tomorrow, please, where it's not culture and where it's not young thinking that's at its heart. And in Liverpool, it's amazing what's going on. As well as having major events in the town centre all the time and finding budgets, very difficult to find the scale of budgets to do what Claire puts on, like the Giants and all of the stuff that happens there. But as a result of that, the confidence that it's given and the support that young people get to take places like the Baltic Quarter of Liverpool, which are old historic breweries and Dockland buildings, and some not that historic, but to allow young people to do things with them, to build modern structures on them, to do things almost without planning permission. And this resonates very much, these are my last words, this resonates very, very much with the Mitte district in Berlin. I did a talk about 2 years ago in Birmingham, and there was and I was talking about Berlin and talking about Liverpool and comparing them both. And there was a councillor from Berlin Council, and he said, I'm really pleased that somebody's talking about what Berlin's achieved. And he said it was achieved from, and he said it in German, first of all, and I've got it written down somewhere what the German phrase is, but translated he says, what we believe in is an absence of government. We let young people get on with it, and now it's become ingrained in German political thinking that we do an absence of government. And me and Geraldine, there was an absence of government when we started. So thanks for listening.